Me and Will are just like, let's double it. No thought of it. Ruth's like, what do you think about this? I'm like, what do you think about it, Ruth? Like, I think this. Yeah. Right, and then like it'll get posted and I'll be like, why have we done this? So like we fucking asked you 6 weeks ago. I'm sorry. It's like, why do you always watch them after we posted them? I want the audience experience.
Yeah, man. Welcome to Characters, a show where, in the dawn of AI, we are trying to better understand the human condition. Season 3 is all about our true colours, stripping away the grey and revealing what haunts, excites us and drives our purpose. I'm Jack, and as your host, I aim to provide our guests with a safe space, aware of potential judgment, to promote vulnerability, empathy and humility. On this show, we aren't focused on who our guest is, what they've achieved or their opinion on society. We've included links in the description for that. We're instead interested in how they overcome anxiety, deal with envy, or embrace forgiveness and gratitude. I really hope you can gain and grow from what our guest has taken a leap and shared for our benefit. Have you watched some of the? You've watched some of the episodes so far?
Yeah.
What do you think so far?
I think they're great, mate. I think it's like a cool conversation that not many people will see, and I think it'll build this kind of catalogue of experience in terms of like creativity and stuff. And I think, like creatives tend to be probably quite deep thinkers and they don't really get to talk about that much, So yeah, and it's also good to see how some people are like really well formed in their vision of themselves and their creativity. And then there's other people maybe like me who are much more insecure and like unsure about it. And I think,
But it's funny you say that because I think the opposite of you. I mean, I know because we've had conversations before, but the way that you are, in the confidence that you have in what you do and what you talk about based on the work that you do, and that comes from research, confidence and all that stuff in what you're talking about. But somebody who doesn't know the answers to the following questions for you would potentially not see that and not understand that. And I think, is that what it's about? Maybe just peeking behind the curtain a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you scrap, like my job is to be confident, right? And I present with conviction. And but I think if you scratch the surface of like the creative process, the actual like making the content, putting out the content, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I think there's a big difference between like, there's kind of like lifetime creatives, so like these people that from birth have been like, I'm a thespian almost, and they go into the arts and they do all of that. And then there's people like me who are like accidental creatives that have kind of, new media has allowed us to just like get an audience, which is like a weird thing, right? And I think that is like maybe why there's uncertainty around it from my end,
right?
Like maybe never. It's kind of like you're thrust into that world a bit.
Oh, so that whole idea of, cause obviously I've grown up in a creative family and creative world, and that sentence you just said about being a thespian and you're destined to do great things and blah, 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 that pressure's nuts.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you don't have any of that.
No. The pressure I would have is like in the past of, get a job, get a good job. You can't, you can't do anything that's creative. Like my uncle said to me, I didn't think this would work. So well done, you've proved me wrong. You've proved everyone wrong and we're very proud of you. But it was kind of like, I had to get past that hump. And also there was, I worked a full-time job whilst doing it because I would never go all in, on the thing. And I held on for too long. The channel and the operation was pretty big before I made the leap. And it was also pretty big before I brought in any help, which I think was like, it was kind of like, like bringing in teams and bringing in people and bringing in proper creatives, like producers and people that are like of that world. It almost like legitimizes it to myself in the terms of, I was like, it's not that thing. It's just me in my spare bedroom or in my loft talking about money. So yeah, I'm probably like quite late to leaning in because it all for the longest time just felt like, well, we're just going to end up back at work, working a normal job.
To what extent do you think talking about money and being, I don't want to say licensed, but obviously there is the financial advice license and all of that stuff that you need in order to give official advice.
Yeah.
But to what extent do you feel like it's about integrity, being able to trust the person that you're talking to?
Oh, it's everything. Because I don't say anything new. I don't really say anything that's different. You can access that information anywhere else, but it's kind of, you know, for some reason, people will say, I like the way that Damien says it. And, you know, my responsibility is to ensure that I don't betray that trust. And you work, you know, with me behind the scenes and you see what that means.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of like it's a feeling, isn't it? You know, some people are just a bit slimy, whereas other people, you kind of think, oh, no, I like the way that they say the thing, even if they're saying the same thing. I mean, within what I do, which is educational content, I think trust is what you sell. And I think that has to really shape the way that people make the content and kind of how they distribute it, how they monetize it. And unfortunately, that makes it harder at the start to get off the ground because you make no money. You know, you need a certain level of scale to make money from giving stuff away. So yeah, I empathize with people that kind of like, they want to share a message and they want to make money from it, but they're not massive. So then like the opportunities to make money are a little bit grubby. You know, like the sponsors aren't the best and things like this. But if you take those things, to kind of like not finish the sentence, but to give you an example, I think it's like a momentum. It's a flywheel. You build the trust and you build it, and it compounds over time. And as soon as you start to sell out, you kind of stop that from spinning. And I think, you know, someone like Martin Lewis has been spinning that thing for so long now that if he does something that, you know, when the adverts came out and it was like, oh, I'm selling a Bitcoin, people didn't believe it because they're like, that's not Martin, you know. So, yeah.
Obviously, in my brain, you're a YouTube pro.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, is there anything that you think? I mean, obviously I've taken your advice.
Yeah, packaging is one of those things that like, there's no one thing that works. And when you find something that works, it will be obvious, oh, no, that works. And people are like, why does it work? And I'm like, I could pontificate and things. All I'm going to say to you is just keep trying things. If you're not getting the traction that you want, remix the packaging just constantly, like change the titles and the thumbnails. And then it's a muscle that you need to kind of exercise over time. I'm not going to pretend that my knowledge from my niche translates to your world like perfectly, because I think that kind of, it's
a non-starter.
A bit pompous.
Yeah,
It's like, you know, like I know all of YouTube. There's a billion different thumbnails doing all different kinds of things and they all work. The key to anyone who I know who's good at YouTube is they're constantly like testing, iterating. And, you know, if you've made like 50 or 100 and you've not got anywhere, it's okay, mix it up a bit, you know, and there's best practices, right? Contrast, framing, not too many words. Like the words need to grab people, these kind of things. But yeah,
you're a superstar. Back to the topic at hand. We were talking about integrity, and this is a really interesting question for you, I think. And I've sort of picked it out of the bunch, and I mean it with all the love in the world. I've been umming and ahhing about it because it feels like I'm trying to catch you out, but it really isn't that. It's peeking behind the curtain. Have you ever acted without 100% integrity? And it doesn't need to be work. You know, it can be in every aspect of life or any aspect of life.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we define integrity as being like true to your values, say, or like, you know, because, you know, how do we define what is integrity? If we say that you have a set of values and you're true to them, have I ever not done that? Yeah, loads of times. I used to work in pressured sales, so it was very cutthroat. So I would purposely try and undermine my colleagues to my own advantage. They used to call me, like my friend Stacey would call me like the puppet master, and we'd like, do you know the NSYNC song? Ba, 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 ba. If we got someone moved on or something went badly for someone, or you know, like someone left the business, we would always, you know, don't want to be, it's a ruthless sales, mate. We weren't getting them sacked, but we were, you know, if a manager was like, what do you think about that person? I would tell them probably, and you know, like this was the game I played. I swam in the Shark Tank.
But from one person's perspective, that's you're being integral. Is that the right word? I don't think it is. You're being true to.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, because,
so that's probably because if we come back to the definition, my moral compass at that point, or my values were to be the best salesperson on the floor, and that was part of it. What people don't realize about sales is it's not like. It's about being the best in the pile. Like, you know, if there's 10 people and you're the best one, you're not getting sacked and you're earning all the money. Anyway, there's other times, so like relationships, I think that's the hardest place to have integrity because emotion gets in the way.
Sure.
And I often look back at like situations where I've like, I messed that person around, I didn't end it soon enough, or I wasn't the best partner. So all of that kind of stuff. But when it comes to my job, what I do, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know how people have like poor morals when it comes to content, because I want to sleep at night and I don't want the world to think like, what a knob. Do you know what I mean? I would struggle with that if the whole world was like, you're a sellout. It's kind of selfish in a way, my view on how we should do things. It's born out of me wanting to be liked. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's the only way that it could be. To me, it's not a choice. It's not a choice to go, oh, well, we won't be sponsored by these people or those people, or we're going to do things that always with the audience in mind. It surprises me that that surprises people that I'm like that. Like, why is the default that people are dickheads?
Is surprise strong enough? Do you think they don't believe you?
Sorry?
As in, is that a difficult thing to sell? The idea that you don't do it for that reason?
Yeah. People call me out all the time.
Yeah.
But I know the truth. You know, we made a course recently, we gave it away. Like, we spent thousands on that. We didn't have to do that. Like, the actions are there, but people, again, what surprises me is that the default assumption and the default online is that people are trying to manipulate, trying to extract, trying to, like, why is that the case?
Because they're so used to it.
Why is that the human
Well,
condition?
I don't think it's. I mean, is it not cultural at this point? Is it not just capitalism? Like, somebody's trying to sell me something?
Most people are nice.
No, but when it's framed, like you're packaging something up, you're delivering something to somebody. Okay, what's the catch? You know, they're all looking for. Is it just a British thing? Obviously, your work is mostly UK based or entirely UK based. Is it just a British thing? Is that different amongst cultures? I don't know.
I think you can sell to people without it being. Like, you know, manipulating them and there's a net loss to them. What I'm questioning is, like, why is there such a prevalence of scammers within the finance space? Why is it so? I guess because the rewards are so high and because it takes a certain kind of person to put themselves on camera, and they're the kind of person who's going to be like, I'm going to put myself out there to the world because they need to listen to me, is probably a similar kind of person to, I don't mind ripping people off. I don't know.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Well, I don't know. You would know more than me, perhaps. Because I'm thinking now, like, there are going to be some people watching this thinking, oh, Damo's come on this podcast.
Sanctimonious BS.
Yeah.
He's just spouting all this crap. Yeah. Because he wants everyone
to try and convince people X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I'm a good guy. Yeah.
I think it's got to be about an individual.
You asked me the question.
No, sure.
I thought we were going to talk about the creative process. I'm joking.
But no, but it all ties in, right? The big questions like this, that's what I love about this. I had something. I was.
I'll pay you afterwards for the
for the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why it's such an interesting question, is because, and I think you've put your finger on it, which is what is integrity and to who, you know. Are you competitive?
Yes. Yeah, massively competitive. With myself. Because no one is competition. There ain't no credible competition. They're all done. I'm joking. I am competitive, and there's a few people in my niche that I kind of like have to my left and right that really drive me forwards. And I've worked in sales my whole life, so it's like a competition with self, a competition with your peers, like I've alluded to. Those are the environments that I've always worked in. So yeah, I'm competitive.
How far does that sort of go? So it leads back into integrity, I guess. It's the question of how far do you go to win?
Yeah,
you know, and how do you strike that balance? I guess.
So I hate to draw on my experience in sales so much, but a lot of it shapes the way I am, I guess. So internally, we were cutthroat. We were, backstabbing each other, and we were trying
classic,
to,
right? Yeah.
But externally, you would never badmouth competition. I would never go into a sales pitch and say we are better than X, because it just looks cheap. And I would be the same with my competition in the global stage. I won't like badmouth them. I won't like call them out. I won't attack them. There's been a couple of examples where I did when the FTX collapse happened. I spoke about it, but only because my audience were like, "What do you think?" But I don't make a habit of going after people, and I actually think that the UK space in particular, there's a few people, a handful. There should be more. It's wide open for the taking. In terms of there should be more voices, in my opinion. I'm happy they're there, and I think they serve different benefits, and I hang out with them, and they're my friends, and I wouldn't betray them, I wouldn't backstab them. I think that competition is a good thing. It kind of keeps you sharp and it pushes you. And anyone who tries to eliminate the competition I think they're not going to win.
No driving force, you just lose it.
Yeah, like you need someone to constantly push your standards and to keep you uploading and to, I'm trying to think of organizations where competition drives them. You could say like an Apple and a Microsoft.
That was in my mind as well.
They're very different kinds of businesses. One is very design, but even that's the competition. One's open source kind of, the other is, I know, we're design led, and they bicker and they pushed each other to this point where they're both the biggest businesses on the planet. Coca-Cola and Pepsi, very similar things. McDonald's, Burger King, whatever. Would one be one without the other? I think the competition is very... Okay, I'll give you an example. There's a guy called Sasha in the UK who's like a maths genius, went to Oxford University, and he pushed me to be more like analytical into the numbers, into the research. James Shack and my competitors who are qualified advisors, I need to have a certain level of like standards and rigor, and I need to kind of raise my game to their bar. Do you know what I mean? So these people, they push me to be better, and I think that's great.
So, after your coffee, in what areas of your life are you happy to be good enough?
Oh, God. I hope to be a good enough dad to my son, because I think that's pretty hard. To be a good dad is pretty hard, especially kind of as someone who is, someone who does what I do and is like, they want to do well at it. It could be all encompassing. It can take you away from family commitments. I know you know a lot about how family can be caught up in other areas of their lives. So I hope that, to be a good enough dad would be great, for him to go, you're a good dad, And I think that the relationship side of things is where that extends to. A good enough partner. I think that's probably the one thing that, I would accept to be mediocre at.
Have you always been able to articulate that or agree with that?
I think a big realization of the last few years for me is that the most important thing in life is the relationships. And I think this is part of my continued shifting away from financial success and measuring my success with with pounds and stuff.
Net worth.
Yeah, measuring it with the people. So yeah, in my 20s, it was kind of like,
get rich and buy Lambos.
Fuck friends, let's get paid. Yeah, no, it wasn't. But all my friends were like of that mentality.
Sure.
We were all, sales guys and girls. Now it's, I realised that when all is said and done, that all that I actually care about is what my partner and what my son think about me. So that's the area to focus on.
Super. What are you sad about?
Ooh. Hitting them with the deep questions. What am I sad about? I'm sad that coffee's nearly done. I'm going to think about it for a second.
Take time.
From a work perspective, I'm sad at how the country feels like it's ripping itself apart a bit at the minute. I'm sad that like the conversation always has to be so political and left and right, and that anytime I mention anything, people are like, "Oh, he's a Tory or he's Labour." I'm not. It makes me sad, the state of the country. It makes me angry, to be honest. The train getting down here was a nightmare. It feels like every time I step out of the house, I'm like, what is going on in this country? That makes me sad. It also makes me sad that the stuff I speak about, I think, is really simple and basic, and it's so groundbreaking and life-changing to people that they message me and they're like, "Oh my God, you've changed my life." And it makes me sad that only 6% of the UK population do the thing that I talk about, and that for the majority, the information's just not there. That's really sad. In a country that's falling apart, and I guess they're linked, the ability to control your finances and to build wealth would improve everyone's outcomes in this country, because we'd have more money to spend, more tax revenue, but instead we just have money sitting in cash bank accounts rotting away. And then I'm sad, probably not sad, but probably like worried that, that I might not get everything out of what I do before it ends, that I need to. So not sad, but like
Anxious
around that.
Why so?
Just because I know the stats. The average YouTuber lasts about 5 years. I'm in my 5th year, so anything beyond here is like
a bonus,
fresh snow that no one's put the feet in. And I don't know that. I don't know how much I need the validation of the world to be like, "Oh yeah, great job, Damien." I don't know what it's like when you turn that off. And I also don't know if I want. There's a part of me that has this dream of like at 40 hitting 1 million subscribers and going, "See you later, world," and just kind of like, here's a book about how to do everything that you need to do in finances. Have it for free, circulate it, give it away. Here's some money set up for a trust for like education within schools and stuff. I'm going to go see the world. And I'm kind of scared that I might make that leap and then hate it and then want to come back, and then everyone will be like, "Oh no, we've moved on now." There's this other guy and he's far more relatable and trustworthy than you.
Is that the leap you want to make? Or
not necessarily,
no.
But do I want to make content every day for the rest of my life? I don't know. Do I want to make finance content every day for the rest of my life? I don't know. 4 years is a long time. I've never done anything longer than 5 years. So, after the next 12 months, this will be the longest job I've ever had. And I tend to ask myself questions all the time of what do I want to do with my life? Because I have that luxury, I appreciate that it's a luxury, but then you want to make the right choice, don't you? And talking about the relationships and family thing, if I keep doing what I'm doing at the pace that I'm doing it forever, podcast, main channel, newsletter, these kind of things, the years just kind of fly by. And do I need to at some point go, let's just stop and let's focus on the people in my life for a bit? So yeah, I think things change and shift over time. I have an image of where I want to take the content for the main channel over time. But yeah, I asked myself that question, like, if you gave me £10 million, would I wake up tomorrow and would I make finance content? I don't know. I don't know that I would.
Tell me about enough.
£10 million, mate. No, enough for bloody hell. I haven't got the answer to you here for these kind of questions.
Because I don't think many people do. Because I think, could it be like my financial literacy is basically born out of your knowledge, so I'm behind. But from what you're saying and what I'm trying to sort of piece together is, is a lot of the problems about if it all comes down to something, is it about greed?
For me?
No,
or
for the country. Let's stay with the country. Does it all boil down to that? Or is because people don't know what enough is? Is that, do you see my point?
I don't want to call it greed, because I think greed implies it's like an insatiable appetite for more, but it's kind of at the expense of everyone else,
sure.
right? I think, if you look at the baby boomer generation, they did really well. I don't think they were greedy. I just think they were lucky. And I think to call them greedy is a bit insulting. And I think, anyone in their situation, they've been through hard times, the 70s, and that were awful. But what they've done is they've ridden like a economic prosperity, big generation of people just moving through the system and have done well through housing and things like this. But that's now creates a lot of problems on the other side of that, because, for them to gain to that point, the new generations are kind of like, we want that. And it's not a given. It never was a given. If you look at the generations before them, going back to the Bible, life was pretty shit for most. The boomers had it really good, because just before the boomers was the guys in the war, and they certainly didn't have it very good. And just before them, the Industrial Revolution. The boomer generation they're kind of like this first standard of excellence in terms of life quality, I would say. And now we hold that up as kind of the standard. So maybe that's greedy. Maybe it's greedy of us to expect that everyone should have that kind of life. But no, I think the problems are born from a lack of understanding around financial topics and, like what to do with your money and these kind of things. And I think the politicians, these kind of people, and the business leaders, they're probably the greedy ones.
I think maybe that's my point. Why doesn't the government say at the age of 18 or even before that, we're opening a stocks and shares ISA for you and putting it in X fund and
because the problem is it would require a long-term mindset, and I think the political landscape is just focused on winning the next election. So they'd rather tinker with the pension as it is right now and say, oh, you can have, your 10% uplift, which slowly bankrupts the country through the triple lock, than they would go, let's put $5,000 for every child when they're born into a pension product. So by the time they're 60, it's worth millions, and we ought to enroll them. That kind of like generational shift, it takes it's basically, you wouldn't see the benefit. Your child may, but you're asking voters to commit to something that isn't going to pay off for 60 years, potentially. And I think politicians have no appetite for that. They just want to get into power there and then.
Feels like we've built a system that is destroying ourselves, because you can't vote for anything for longer than 4 years. And so you can't really make any moves.
No.
That's going to affect anything.
Some of the best things that we're most proud of were always kind of long-term projects, weren't they? Something like the NHS, state pension, these things that we hold as British, don't mess with the state pension and don't mess with the NHS. These were things that were introduced as kind of big long-term projects. So I think maybe if we had some of that thinking, it would be good.
Do you see any of that?
No. Not right now. I think Labour had an opportunity when they came in to do some big things, and they just kind of done nothing. And they hemmed themselves in with really bad fiscal promises. They said we won't spend any money, we won't borrow any money, and we won't raise taxes.
Well, then you can't do anything.
So like, what are you going to do? They've still got time, but yeah, I don't think that there is much long-termism in politics or in the day-to-day kind of discord of the country. Social media, what I do, is probably a result of that, because we just have all this kind of information. Imagine, right, as a recent example, I don't know when this will go out, but 100 years ago, we would not have known that there were fires in California. We just wouldn't have known it. We wouldn't have cared because we wouldn't have known. But now I feel like deeply affected by seeing people's houses burn down in LA or whatever that I don't know, and I consume the content around that all day. And that stops me probably thinking like, how can I improve my situation? Do you know what I mean? It's like we have exposure to all the world's problems all of the time, and I feel like we need to do something about that. So we're just so caught up in the immediacy of the feed in our faces. Obviously, what I talk about a long-term view, don't I? You gotta buy a global index fund for the next 30 years, and there you go. But yeah, I think that is part of the problem, is this kind of constant, infinite feed of the world's crap.
On the basis that, my understanding is, some of the poorest amongst, maybe not the poorest, but the poorest in society, perhaps, you have to correct me on this if it's off, but are still richer than people who lived 100 years ago.
Yeah. So if you look at kind of like the standard of life, it was like this massive, so post, say like the Industrial Revolution, World War II, things like this, there was this big boom in the quality of life for the middle and the lower class. We've seen a slight reversal of that now, but you take your poorest person in the UK today versus your poorest person in the UK for basically any time before like 1930, 40, they're much better off. You can see that in the fact that they'll have a TV and a phone, right? They have some form of wealth, but the trend is reversing and the inequality is growing. So, the fear is if we don't address that, it continues to get worse. And it's kind of like, it's not much consolation or, solace to that person who can't afford to feed their kid every day. Go, oh, well, 200 years ago, like they were really bad. You're not that bad. The poverty today is there in a big way. And I think 39% of people in the UK struggle on financially every month. 39%. So this is like, it's basically most people. And it's different because it's like you could have a car and you could have a house and you could go, but you could still be struggling, but you're struggling because of the car and the house. Whereas in the past, it was like, you don't have anything. You're living in like a workhouse, or it's like Oliver Twist kind of style, isn't it?
But then all you needed to do was think about, the three basic needs rather than the three basic needs plus I need to pay my car lease at the end of the month.
Yeah, so I can get to work, or we've set up a system in society where like you kind of have to have these things. You get a lot of criticism for saying that people on say like 60, 70K a year can struggle. But it's true, especially in this part of the world we're in, or in the southeast, or
without drastic lifestyle changes.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
So tell me about lifestyle creep.
Okay, I mean, it's the process of if your life is a field, and that represents your finances, and your spending is the fence. Lifestyle creep is as the field gets bigger, the fence just sits at the edge of the field. So you're always at the parameters or the limits of like the growth. And this is really common. This is kind of like, how can someone who earns 5 million a year be skint? Lifestyle creep. They just end up keeping up with the Joneses is another way of saying it. They constantly expand their spending to keep up with a lifestyle that's probably the pay grade above them, because, the newsflash is always someone richer. Unless you're Elon Musk, there's a lot of levels to wealth before you can get, you could spend £1 billion in a day if you wanted, so, and I think it's deeply psychological. I think it's there's lots of things going on there.
So there's financial literacy and there's financial education. Tell me about financial psychology.
Yeah. So there's the how-tos, the kind of put your money here, stick it there, and then there's the whys and the sort of the ride, if you will, which I think is actually the hardest bit. I think it's why Morgan Housel's book, Psychology and Money, sold so well, 7 million copies or whatever, because it speaks to the element of money that we don't talk about, which is kind of the emotions attached with it. Money is deeply emotional because money really is a representation of kind of our dreams for our own life. It's a means of exchange, but it's kind of like, it's like the lifeblood of your existence, isn't it? It gives you the ability to be the person that you want to be. So if you have no control over your money, you have no control over yourself. And it can be deeply, there's a lot of shame involved in that. If you're in debt or you're struggling financially, you feel like I'm a bad person, And then on the other side of it, there's all of the kind of psychology around wanting to display wealth and trinkets and bird feathers in the headpieces. It's like that. It's like as old as civilization, isn't it? It's a big topic, the psychology of money. And what I will say is I think we need real education broadly across society about the way we should think about money, about how people think about money, and about the way that, we shape attitudes towards money. The idea that parents will influence the way their kid thinks about money, but most parents are terrible with money, is scary, right? Why should we leave them, just cast them to the wind in that sense, when it's so impactful?
So what does money mean to you?
Oh, you sound like my therapist. It means freedom and choice, but it's also the most dominant controlling force in my life, which is kind of crazy, isn't it? It's like, it's the thing that I say it gives me lots of freedom and choice, but actually it's the thing that controls me the most. I love it. It's given me everything that I am. I've hated it for large periods of my life. I find a lot of comfort in the collection and massing and counting of money. That goes back to being a little kid. I always used to count money. I just think ultimately though, it's a tool. Like I said, it's a tool to shape your life the way you want to live it. And I think most people, what money dictates how they live their life, whereas it should be the other way around. You use money to dictate the life you want to live, right? And I think, a few simple habits can mean over a period of time, you can get to a point where you are the one that says, no, this is how I live my life.
Requires confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah, and discipline, psychology elements. It requires a long-term mindset and delayed gratification. I don't drive a nice car. I could drive a nice car, but I don't, because I highly suspect that the majority of people that drive nice cars probably shouldn't be driving the nice cars. I went into my Mercedes garage the other day. I said, I don't drive a nice car, and I'm a Mercedes. It's like a 2017 A-class Mercedes that I bought when I got dumped by a girl once, and I've driven the thing ever since, and I'm going to ride it into the floor, like that relationship. But yeah.
Sorry, that just keeps getting better.
Yeah, but so I was in there getting it repaired because, it's falling apart, like the relationships. And they have a G-Wagon in the thing, and there was all these people looking at them. And I was talking to the guy, I was like, oh, G-Wagon, yeah. He was like, do you want to know something? I was like, what? He was like, every single G-Wagon that we've ever had leave this showroom is rented. And I was like, really? He's like, no one's ever bought one. He's like, they're all rented. So there's an argument that the wealthy rent stuff, maybe, because why slap 120 grand on a car when you can just lease it, and you just lease it forever, maybe through the business, whatever. But there's also this thing of how many people would say that it's their car when it's not, and I think that's the kind of delayed gratification. If we look at the amount of car finance agreements that have been taken out since the introduction of PCP as a car payment system is effectively a lease with a balloon at the end. And all the car companies were like, we're not selling enough cars here, so let's introduce a new type of car finance called PCP, where we let people lease it, and then at the end they pay a big balloon, but people don't pay the balloon. People don't want to call it a lease, they want to call it a finance agreement, because then it implies that they're buying the car when actually they're not really. And I think, most people don't want to wait for the trappings of wealth. They want to earn a bit of money and start living like, they've got a lot. And I think that's the biggest hindrance towards building wealth. And I think that's the psychological element that's required.
But it can be a horrendous journey, that.
Yeah.
I mean, to basically live like you don't have the money, so that you can put it all away and start to build it so that it starts to grow itself, etc., etc. When you've got X, Y, and Z, 2, 3, and 4 all weighing down on you, and people not understanding why you don't go out anymore, and all of these issues, like there's a lot fighting against you keeping the money in the bank.
Yeah, I think first of all, enjoy your money. Spend money on yourself and enjoy it. But you've got to really define, what is enjoyment to me. Again, you tell the money what it does. The money doesn't tell you. And in the same way that I told you about the fire in California before, how much of people's spending is dictated by what they see from others that in the past they wouldn't have seen? Do you want to drive a certain car because you've seen it on Instagram and you wouldn't even know it existed before that? I remember when I was a kid, there's a kid lived on my estate called Scott, and he bought this cap gun. It was like a little banger gun that would pop. And I was so jealous. It drove me crazy. But now looking back, before I saw the gun, I didn't even know it existed and I didn't want it. But as soon as I saw it, I wanted it. And it was just kind of like this envy, jealousy, I think it's the same with a lot of consumption around luxury goods, vehicles, cars. You're trying to project this thing to the world, and the world has projected that onto you. Our friend Tamain, who we know, he goes through these things of I need this car, I need that car for the image. And I'm like, you don't need it really. So there's levels to it. And I think a lot of people need to sit there and go, what is important to me in terms of my spending? The things that are important for me are really nice holidays, time with my family and my son. I've recently started to, we've got a Christmas party soon in Feb. Booked it in Feb because it's cheaper, because it ain't important to me to have it in December. But I bought a nice suit for that because I wanted to look nice. But I don't care about cars. And I think, that's probably a good exercise for people, is to sit there and go, what do I really care about? You can't have everything. You can't spend on everything. So define the things that you really like and then go in on them. I know you like camera gear, mate. And it's important to you.
Tell me.
Do you know what I mean? So, but that's okay if if you've sat down and gone, these are the things that are really important to me, and you spend money on them. That's great. Kind of like hobbies.
Because it actually does add to your life.
It's intentional, and you get to seek joy out of it.
And if you don't know, then you're kind of stuffed. You're flying a plane without the.
You end up driving like a car on lease, wearing a Rolex and being like, why does this all feel a bit crap?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like, actually, what I love is taking photos of birds, and you buy like a lens that's $2,000 or whatever, and you sit there every weekend and you use it, you'll be like, this is like yeah. I mean, in your world, maybe, but you'll get joy out of that, and I think that's a really important conversation in the modern world, where we get projected onto us all of the time. Like, this is what wealth is. This is what it should look like. This is what you need to buy. Marketing has got really good at telling us what we need to buy. I think what I'm really good at is going, no, I'm not bothered about that. I'm Zara clothes, head to toe.
Where's the who's fighting that battle?
Who is? Everyone is. They just don't
realize.
No,
as in who's fighting against that tide of advertising you need X, Y, and Z that you don't actually need? Where's the education? Where's that coming from?
It doesn't exist, does it? It doesn't exist. Because, the corporate machine is is such that I just saw the camera sliding and I was like, bloody hell, there's another $4,000. just so you can see every side of my face.
Absolutely. Every minutiae, mate.
Yeah, great. my hairline, that'll get fixed.
It's looking good, man.
Yeah. Just comb it all forward. Grow it. If you grow it, it looks longer. Funnily enough.
Funny that.
Thanks.
Just take your page out of my book. Yeah.
No, there is no one fighting the other side. The realization that, I mean, we're getting really into it here, but the realization that the companies who create mobile phones and the apps on them hired the people who designed the casinos in Vegas is a terrifying thing. And now they have AI where they just get bajillions of data points, an official number, every single day telling them what people like and what they don't, and that they can just turn all of that energy to you. So while you're sat on the toilet in your most fragile moment with your phone going like this, you don't realize that you've got like the brightest minds ever just aiming at you going like, click this, do that. And I think that no one in society is like really pushing against that. The Americans have started to, they have these kind of like, they got TikTok in, didn't they? But when it did, I don't know if you listened to any of that, like the hearing where the Congress people were there. They were just like, are you Chinese? And he's like, I'm from Singapore. And the guy was like, I've never heard of such a country as Singapore or something like this. And I was like, there's no hope. There's no hope here. Like they're levels above. You know what it's like. You're trying to convince the regulators, like, what is TikTok? It's that kind of conversation. Yeah, I think the fight is an individual one. I think, I'm here, we're talking about money. The battle is consumerism. That's the great fight there. Consumerism robs you of having the life that you really want. It takes your money away, which stops you from having the freedom of choice. People think that we have infinite choice over products now. There is no choice when it's infinite in that sense. It's just you're being told to buy. Amazon, man. Like Amazon is just, it's an addiction.
Tell me about it. Yeah, tell me about it.
So I think that's the great fight for people, to push back against that. And I think the way you do that is you sit down in a room by yourself with a pen and paper and you go, what are the things that I really enjoy? What are the things that I love? Maybe if you don't know the answer to that, you spend a week or two going, what were the best parts of my week? What were the bits where I felt great about like what I do in my life? It might be the coffee you have in the morning. Okay, buy a good coffee machine and get really into it and get one of those little like separator things and, do you know what I mean? Like define what, the little,
I know exactly
I see them and
filters,
I'm like,
filters,
they've got the little like spiky things and I'm like, and
you've got a big like orb that you like swirl it around. Oh, that's a good colour. Like it. Good
or
colour.
you just get like Nescafe in a cup and does the job.
Values.
Yeah. So again, it's like your integrity, isn't it? Yeah. It's like your value set. You define the value set and then you get relentless in terms of like, no, I will not like succumb to those values, to what I've defined as important to me. I'll spend loads of money going on holiday, I'll splash out there, but I'm not upgrading my car until the wheels fall off, just because society tells me. Every time my son gets in my car, he's like, can you just get a nicer car? I'm like, nope.
I've been in your car. It's a nice car.
Yeah, it's all right, mate. It's fine. That's what I mean. It's perfectly good.
Yeah. Some people lost the concept. Like, because
it's done 100,000 miles. Yeah. People are like, it's done. I worked in a Chinese takeaway in the past before I started YouTube. I was working full time, and then Fridays and Saturdays I'd deliver Chinese takeaways. And there's this Polish guy that was working there. And he was like talking about cars and this obsession with the British to get rid of cars. And he was like, I've come over here, I work in the takeaway, and then I just buy cars on Auto Trader that have got 100,000 miles on them, and I send them back home and I sell them for 5 times the price. He's like, because in the UK, the British perception is once it's got 100,000 miles, it's done. He's like, we run a Mercedes till like 1 million miles. He's like, just change little parts. And he's like, they go forever if you look after them. So
like most things.
Yeah.
Yeah, people say that stuff isn't built to last, but actually anymore. But
it is today.
It's optimized. Yeah.
Well, technology not so much. It's got built-in shelf life, hasn't it? But cars are a different thing. My mom's attitude of your car breaks down at 100,000 miles is born on cars from the 70s and 80s. It was 50 years ago, mate. It's like basically a steam engine versus what we're driving around in today.
And they're all practically the same, you know. Yeah. Amazing. I mean, we were talking about envy before. What makes you envious?
Envy. So I was recently listening to, I think it was Lex Friedman talk about this, and I think definitions of these kinds of words are important. So jealousy is kind of, I think is a nicer word than envy. I think envy leads to kind of like bad action. So I don't think I'm envious of anyone. I get jealous of things. I get jealous of people who are creative. I watch a video and I'm like, damn, that is good. That like, and then I you know, for a minute I hate them, and then I'm like, okay, let's go do something, and then it inspires me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like for a minute you're like, why didn't I think of this? You know, you wanna just like, oh, it does your head in. And then I get jealous of like, you know your life and all of like the intricacies of it, and the kind of the mess that is the relationships in your life. And then you're walking down the street and for a second you see a couple or a father and a son, and it's like this beautiful moment, and you just think, oh, their whole life must be perfect. Everything about that relationship is perfect. You know, and I get jealous in those moments, and then I have a second to think, oh, you know,
totally unrealistic.
You don't know the complexities of everything. You see one little moment, and I'm sure there's other people that see a little moment of my existence and go, oh, he's got everything made. So
have you always been able to put that together? Have you always seen it like that?
No. I think doing what I do helps, because like I, by many people's definition, live the dream. And now that I've been behind the curtain, I realize that like, it's just a job. It's a great job. I love my job. I don't want to be, you know, negative about it, but it is a job. And I think most people would think it's not that glamorous if they saw the day to day. So, you know, getting to make that step has kind of given me a reframing of a lot of aspects of life. And yeah, I think those are things. The creativity thing, you know, that doesn't go away. When you see someone and they just knock it out the park, and you're like, oh damn, why can't I be that good? Especially if they're doing it consistently.
Have you asked your, I don't want to say, well, yeah, have you asked your competitors or somebody that you are envious of? I don't know if you're close enough to them, a YouTuber or whatever. I know you've got a group of YouTubers, but that you sort of chat. But have you ever asked them directly, or told them directly that video, like, I wish I'd done that?
Yeah, probably. There's, you know, like within the finance space within the UK, there isn't. I know everyone, and I think a lot of people tend to be just, here's some finance content, and I get more inspired by people that are kind of either documentary or there's like a real creative lean on what they do, and I don't necessarily know them well enough to say, wow, that was inspiring. And I also get kind of, you know, like the people who can just sit down and talk. Gary Stevenson has like captured the world's imagination, it feels like, and the guy can just sit in his kitchen and just talk at a camera, and I'm probably quite jealous of that. But jealous in the sense of, I really admire it, I respect it. I would be scared to be that kind of bear, you know. I kind of need the bells and whistles to like, you know, hide the imperfections. Whereas it feels like he could just talk for an hour on his topic and it'd be fine.
It just comes out in a perfect stream.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's curious your understanding of jealousy versus envy, because I have it the other way around. I think envy is actually about something that can teach you something about yourself, and then jealousy is, I just hate you.
Yeah. Okay. Know. I think, like, what leads to violence? Like, what leads to someone killing someone? Is it jealousy or is it envy? And I think whichever one is the one that's violent, I'm not that. Because there's a difference, isn't there? There's like the kind of, the force that makes you go, okay, I'm going to pull my socks up and I'm going to like smash this.
Sure.
That kind of positive. And then there's the, I want to kill that person, you know, and like certain people make that leap of like, I want to destroy that person so that they don't have that thing.
It's the hero villain journey. Isn't it?
One is, I don't know if one is envy, one is jealousy, or if they're both the same. But yeah, for me, I actually find it really motivational, and a lot of my competitiveness is born from that kind of seeing things that other people doing and going, okay, give me the ball. You know.
What makes you shy?
Walking into rooms with people I don't know, the opposite sex, always used to make me shy. Lucky I got a missus now, so, you know, thank God. Thank God that's over. Jesus.
Don't even think about that anymore. God.
Like, this is just like... I just thank God for Tinder. I know people slate Tinder, right? But this idea of just walking up to random people in bars and being like, "Hey, here's my trinkets. What do you think of my feathers?" Do you know what I mean? Like,
Please love me.
Doing your little mating dance. Like, that was always terrifying to me, and I think a lot of lads can relate. I think for any female listeners out there, the reason that creepy men approach you all the time is because they're the only kind of guys that have got the balls to do it. It's the same thing as like, why are all the people in content ripping everyone off? Because they're the creeps that'll go online, you know. It's like they've got the balls. So that always made me shy. Now it's kind of like I get like, there's like a bashfulness when people come up to me in the street and be like, "Oh, Damien, you changed my life." That kind of makes me like wither. Like, I love it, but it kind of, it's like this spotlight is like, ooh. I'm better at it now. I have kind of like what are you invested in? Are you staying consistent? I kind of have like a little, you know, I asked them a few questions.
A go-to,
yeah. Because in the past it was,
what do I do with this?
Yeah, what's going, like, you know, I don't see real people, do I? In what I do, I just sit behind cameras. So when it crosses over into the real world, and you see someone go like, "Oh, you know," they're telling me something that I might not believe about myself. You know, "Oh, you're amazing, you've changed my life," and I'm like, I can't. You know, I find that hard to kind of, you know, like I said, there's levels of insecurity around what I do and things, so that makes me shy.
So what is it? So what don't you believe?
Well, I think there's, you know, within the world, there's always this kind of tendency to want to be the smartest person in the room. You kind of want to be the person that everyone's like, "Oh, he knows more than anyone else." The biggest value the biggest amount of value that I can deliver is by delivering the basic information to people so that it transforms their life, the 0 to 1 movement. But that isn't going to impress like a graduate in economics or a PhD. But, you know, my insecurity is that people are going to be like, "Oh, you know, he's too simple. He doesn't know what he's going on about." Whereas actually, it's the simplicity that's the biggest shift. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure within like filmmaking, there's people who try too hard to appease critics and filmmakers and end up making bad movies as a result. You know,
making the film for the sake of making the film.
Yeah.
They're making, yes, exactly right. You know, the cinematography needs to be X level of complicated or something that nobody's ever seen before because it needs to be original.
Yeah.
Whereas actually you could have just put a camera on a tripod and pointed it in that direction and let the actor do the work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's we're all making a movie, so it's blown out of proportion.
Yeah, so there's that kind of fear that, you know, like, who am I to be the person that is saying these things, and who am I to stand there in the street and someone's looking at me going like, "You've changed my life." Like, it's like a mirror that you hold up to yourself that, you know, you kind of, it's flattering, it's amazing, but it's kind of, it's a lot for you to kind of, I don't think that I'm that special. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like lucky that I started talking about index funds during COVID, and then it's got to this point that it has got to. And I can acknowledge that the information that I give is transformative, but it comes back to that point before that I'm sad about the fact that it isn't just a given, because it is quite basic, a lot of it. So yeah, I don't know. This is, that's like when those moments when someone's like, oh yeah, I get very kind of, I'm probably not like I am now. I'm probably a bit shy. And I probably just need to get a bit better at that. Of being like, one thing that I've got better at is realizing that just because it's basic to you doesn't mean it's basic to lots of other people. And it is life-changing. You could teach someone how to cook a meal. That's potentially life-changing information to that individual. You teach someone how to invest. That's definitely life-changing information to that individual. And, I, for some reason, am the person that's delivering that to a lot of people. And I need to just get better at internalizing that and accepting that. But I'm no different to everyone else. I'm not special. So to be told you're special when you don't think you are is, I wouldn't even approach a girl in a bar, mate. Because I did take, whereas all my lad mates who are like, I'm the God's gift, they're the guys approaching the girls in the bar.
It's give a man a fish, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just passing on some pretty basic knowledge that what's special is people then going and doing the thing. It's like, how many personal trainers are there that are like, do this, do that? And they're all saying the same thing. You've got to do the thing. You've got to kind of show up and consistently do it. That's what's special, the consistency. I'm just another guy talking about it in my own way. And I do it for my own reasons. Like I earn money out of it as well. It supports my family and things like this. So that's a big clock, isn't it?
That's a big clock.
It's like punching the wall. Someone's in the West Wing ringing a bell. Like, no, yeah. Coming back to the question, what makes me shy? Yeah, so if someone comes up to me in the street and talks to me and I'm a bit like, oh, I'm still not used to that. Like, it doesn't happen very often. Maybe like once or twice a day when I'm out in London. So I still get a bit like, ooh, about that process.
But it's an icing on the cake, though.
Oh, it's amazing.
Within reason, I think the hyper famous. I think it could.
I'm nowhere near that, so I get to love it. Yeah. I get to like get buzz. What a lovely feeling for someone to come over and be like, I really enjoy your work, Damien. Thank you so much. Keep making your videos. That's like, it's just like a dopamine, or whatever the happiness chemical is. If you're Justin Bieber and you can't leave your house and people are sniffing your mail or like your rubbish, like that's the level of fame I don't think anyone needs. Luckily, finance ain't that sexy.
Is there anything you regret not doing due to fear?
Oh, well, so I get really scared about every video that I post. I have a process now. I have to run it by a few people that I trust that kind of say to me, yes, I like it, or no, this isn't very good. Some like really honest people. But yeah, there's a lot of anxiety or kind of just nervousness around posting content that means that holds me back from producing as much content as I could. I think we need to be kinder to ourselves around these kind of things because, I could sit here and say, I should have done this, I should have done that. But then I look at it and it's like, I started the channel and I made that leap at some point. Should have done it sooner, but I did it. Started a podcast, bought the podcast, like made the leap. I should have started it by myself, would have saved me a load of money. But I got there in the end. Hired people, So it's really easy for me to go, oh, should have done this, should have done that. But actually, scary things are scary. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to overcome the fear and make the leap. And I think people should pat themselves on the back if they take any form of kind of risk like that. But yeah, I wish I was a bit less critical of my work so that I could produce more of it. Would probably be the one example of where it holds me back. But on the other side of that coin,
it wouldn't be as good.
It wouldn't be as good, exactly.
So it's the artist's journey.
Yeah, and it's like a constant battle of God, if only I made more.
Yeah.
It's like if Quentin Tarantino made double the amount of films he did. Would they be as good? Probably not.
I love the way you said Quentin Tarantino, not Stanley Kubrick. But...
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the secret's out or what.
Well, that's probably the first time in forever that I've actually gone out of my way to to mention it, only because it's so highly relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surrounded. There's a bust of his head down there. No, but I just thought, so I could say Stanley Kubrick, but I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag. No. So I'll say Quentin Tarantino instead, because it's
just funny. It could be interpreted in every way, couldn't it? But that's hilarious.
And unfortunately, Stanley can't make many more movies.
Sadly not. Sadly
Quentin
not.
could rattle out a few more if he wanted to.
Yeah. He said he was done, I think.
10 and done, was it? He's got one more.
Yeah.
I think he's got one more. It's like 10, but he doesn't count a couple.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Just leave those out.
Yeah.
I'm sure Stanley would do the same, to be fair. Absolutely awesome, mate. Do you feel you live an ordinary or an extraordinary life?
Oh, ordinary day to day leads to extraordinary outcomes. And I think that's kind of anyone who is extraordinary probably has very repetitive, ordinary day to day. Michael Jordan shot like 3-pointers or, in his back garden just over and over and over. So my day to day is very ordinary. I mean, today's not that ordinary, right? I'm sat in Stanley Kubrick's house having this conversation, but these are the bits that people see. They don't see the day to day. So I have like this very ordinary, repetitive day, but the outcome is extraordinary. And I think we all need to kind of embrace that ordinariness, that repetitiveness if we want like the big outcome. Same with investing. I'll link anything back to investing if you give me the chance.
Well,
but it's that repetitive action that's really boring, that after 20, 30 years, you look at it and go, holy crap, that really has transformed my life, which is extraordinary.
It's the two marshmallows, one marshmallow now or two marshmallows later.
Delayed gratification. Yeah, the marshmallows test. Yeah.
It's almost unteachable.
Well, they followed the kids with the marshmallow test, and they saw that the ones that did delay, they lived like better lives, basically. Better in terms of they were wealthier and reported to be happier and things like this. But yeah, how do you teach it? I think the problem is you can probably put into a child a sense of consumerism and these kind of things. And I think that's what we accidentally do, but yeah.
From birth, toys,
that's what I mean.
Bright colors, high saturation, addiction. I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah. You need to, I think you need to kind of really have a bump in life early on to kind of put you on the straight and narrow, or that's at least what happened to me. The best thing that happened to me was just messing up royally in my 20s, because to dig myself out of that hole then gave me the mindset and the way I am with money and consumerism today, because I was an idiot back then.
I've got a friend who did the same thing, who was who wasn't intending on being there to pay it back.
Okay,
if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he's just in October he just finished paying off the debt. So he's now where you were back then, because I know the story of having to pay off the debt that you accumulated because you think something's happening and then that doesn't happen and then blah, blah, blah. He just did that in October, and it's kind of like a moment, because he's now so far in that mindset of, this is just, now it just keeps going. It's kind of a little benchmark that's kind of lost its significance.
It's a foregone conclusion, isn't it?
There you go.
He knew he was going to hit it. Like, when you're £1,000 off the figure, you know you're going to get there, and you kind of, you've lived the glory of it already. Like this sort of hedonic adjustment. It's another psychological component of, pay slips. People get their pay slips the day before they get paid. They get the buzz of being paid at the point they receive the pay slip, not at the point that the money lands. The biggest amount of joy that most people get out of a holiday is the planning of it, not the actual holiday, which is kind of backwards. But, this is why we should book a holiday a year in advance, because then you get the joy throughout the year. You're looking forward to the holiday. It's this kind of sense of expectation and that's pleasurable to humans. And I think with the debt thing, you've already marked off that you're going to get there. And when you do pass it, it's like next. It's the same with hitting big milestones in terms of hitting 100,000 subscribers. I knew at 99,000 subscribers I was going to hit 100,000. So when it came, it was kind of like, yay, next. There's no like big parade or thing. I think you've got to really go out there and actively celebrate these things. Your friend should go and max a credit card or something. I don't know. No, he should start saving. But you know, he should take a moment to say, like, I did the thing that I said I was going to do.
Last one. Your wisdom that you've gained since I would say going on that journey of having to pay off that debt and all the way up to where you are now, you've gained all of this knowledge and wisdom through that journey. What would you say to the childhood version of you?
I've said this before, but I really mean this. I would tell him to relax and to chill out, and tell him that it's going to take you a long time to have value in the world. So you just need to enjoy yourself and chill. Don't be so eager to change the world when you've got no skills or anything to offer the world. It's okay to be useless in a sense. Take your 20s, try lots of things, explore, quit things quickly when you don't like them, and, you know, just experience life, because you don't have to have everything figured out at 20 or 30 or even 40. You have a lot of life ahead of you. I feel the modern world makes us feel like if we're not figured stuff out by 21, we've somehow failed, because we have like people like Mark Zuckerberg put in our faces. It's like, oh, God, changed the world at 21. Guy's a freak. He's not normal. You know, this is the reason we talk about him, because he's an anomaly. Most people, the average millionaires in their 60s, you know. So just relax, Damien. Enjoy it. Don't beat yourself up that you're not where you think you should be, because these kind of constraints and these values or whatever that you're putting on yourself are not realistic.
Where do you think you should be?
Well, back then I thought that I should be changing the world at like 25, and that I should have set up some big company. And, you know, I remember like saying, like, you know, if I'm not a millionaire by 25, I've completely failed. I failed. Again, where you should be, that's a big question, isn't it? Because there's, you know, like that for me personally, like I'm competitive and I want to push forward and I want to do stuff and I want to help people and all of these things. But for some other people, it's like they just want to be at home on a Friday night with a glass of wine with their partner, and that's the place that they want to be. You know, if there's the defining theme of this conversation is people need to define what their thing is and aggressively pursue that and ignore everything else, because the world constantly tells us what we should be and how we should live our lives. And I think that leads to a lot of unhappiness. Whereas if you internally go, what is the thing that I want? Then, you know, you realistically can set out the steps to get it. For me, in my early 20s, it was, I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to be successful. And for some reason, I thought that if I did, you know, that I look at myself now and I realise I'm still young. Back then I thought, if I don't do it in my 20s, I'm nothing, which is just ridiculous. Where did that come from?
Indeed. You're a superstar, mate.
I'm not special. I told you.
Sorry. Great to hang out with you, buddy. Yeah, it's really chill. Like, you know, no worries. Just great to see you.
Is there any food knocking about?
Thank you for watching Characters. I hope you were able to gain and grow from our guests' vulnerability. To discover more characters, please subscribe to support the show and allow us to share more of our true colours. Here's the latest episode, or one YouTube has picked for you. Enjoy.